Hi everyone, and welcome to Art with Nathan. This is our next episode in the fundamentals of drawing. We made a bonus episode if you want to draw still lives, really more complicated still lives. It's way more boring than this one. So we're going to bring together all the skills that we've been doing over the last few weeks, from constructing lines to shapes to forms, and bring it all together to draw this meme, which is one of my favorite memes. If you want to know why, it's none of your business. Okay, I'm going to be drawing Kermit the Frog. Right, so the first thing you want to do, as always, is look for the biggest shape. What is the biggest shape? And start from there. So I'm going to say it is Kermit's body. As you can see, he's quite a specimen. So I kind of like this shape here. Right, I might have done it a little bit too big. Okay, let's just go a bit smaller. There you go. I always wonder, is Kermit the Frog, is that thing around his neck like something he's wearing, or is it part of his body, and is he comfortable being naked all the time? I suppose he is a frog. Relatively easy shapes to draw. And again, I'm always thinking in terms of north, east, south, and west. Which way is that line going? Personally, I don't like iced tea. Okay. So now we see I've made a mistake. I have drawn it too big, but that's not a problem. All I do is just readjust. A little bit smaller. And if you have the urge to destroy your drawing, don't. Okay, that's a bit better. So just addressing everything in terms of its basic shapes. Just really feeling into its proportions. So now I'm going to do a quick check to see that everything's relatively in proportion. So look at the top of his head, and I'll draw a line straight across. I see it should coincide with the top of the cup. That is true. The bottom of the cup, kind of, yeah, that seems about right. Over there, straight down. So I'm using the cup as a reference, straight down. So there should be the end of his body. Okay, so I'm happy with how those shapes have turned out. I can go ahead and draw his arms. Now here Kermit the Frog's married to a pig. Can't be too kosher. Okay. So again, we're just drawing everything very structurally at the moment, looking at each shape, trying to figure out what's the biggest shape, in what way can I simplify this to make it easier for my eye to draw it, to understand it. So much of drawing is about understanding structurally what you are actually looking at. The tricky thing would be these triangle collar that he has going on here. We're just going to handle it one triangle at a time. Okay, I'm going to show you an easy way to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw lines directing me where each triangle is. So he's got one that comes right to the edge over here. Another one here. What about there, there, and there? Okay. So what I'm going to do, and they all meet up about there. So I'm going to draw a little grid structure to help me get this pattern right. And they go down to about there. Okay, there we go. It's quite a neat trick. It's really looking at the shape of the glass. I'm going to ignore the tag. I feel like it'll be a better drawing without it. I wonder how they took this photo, tried to get the glass suspended up there on his hand. I suppose he was just holding it, you know. Okay, so I'm going to approach the lights and darks in the glass structurally. That means I'm going to draw them in each light shape or plane of tone as if it were a structure in the glass. This just helps me map out all the different things I have to address later on in the drawing. And I'm going to do the same with Kermit's body. So he's got this lovely highlight, silver lining around his whole face. This meme is all about Kermit minding his own business, but still silently judging you. So just know that, guys. Silently judging me drawing him. Okay, so I'm going to work a bit on the tones in his face. Let me just plane out all the tones and then I'll talk about it real quick. Okay. So if you look what I've done with Kermit the Frog, it looks like I've done all these unnecessary lines on his face. And yeah, they aren't necessarily for the finished drawing, but they are necessary for me to complete the drawing, to help me with my process. So I've delineated each plane, each tonal plane, and within each plane I'll assign a specific tone. So last week we spoke about a tonal grid from 1 to 10, where 1 was the lightest and 10 was the darkest. And so basically all I'm going to do now is address each plane that I've identified. And these things, they might be different. You might see it differently for each person, depending on how you want to divide it up. But I'm going to address each tonal plane, individually, and give it a tone, and then blend them all together to create the form. So it's a really good strategy to break down the process of shading a drawing, as opposed to kind of figuring it out as you go. It's a very structured way to think and see something that you want to draw. And the more you do it, the more innate the process becomes. So let me show you what I mean here. So if you look at the shadow on his neck, yeah. So I've delineated this shape over here. And I'm going to give it like a tonal grading of, let's say a 7, okay, out of 10. And this one as well. So his entire face is in shadow. It is toned. Okay, there's nothing that is left out. So for now, I'm just doing very thin strokes, like a hatching, but I'm going to blend it in with my finger. And the harder you press, the darker the tone. The lighter you press, the lighter the tone. Okay, so if you have a look to see what I've got now, is you'll see that I have a conceptual map of the tones roughly on Kermit's body. I try to keep it quite loose and fluid. You never want to take a drawing too seriously early on, especially one of Kermit the Frog, who is silently judging you. So if we have a look, what we have here now is a map, a conceptual map of the different toned areas on his face. Now it looks quite faceted, and that's because we're treating each tone as a facet. So we want to round them off. We're going to go into the drawing and develop it a little bit more further. You do want to move away from this point. You do not want to stay at this point. So often I've seen art students who never get quite past this. They feel like they've achieved something. It looks right, but really it is just robotic marks at the moment. So you want to add some finesse. You want to blend it in. Work at the gradients between tones. So if you look at the drawing over here, let's start with this triangle that I started out with first. Okay, so it goes from like a 7 here to like a 4. So I want to work on this area where it joins really carefully, just very subtly blend in that tone. Okay, and it's a bit light here, so I don't want to lose it. I One of the things about charcoal is that you can blend with your finger. Some art teachers don't like if you blend with your finger. I mean, that's none of my business, but it does work very well. It doesn't work well with a graphite pencil, so because the oil in your finger mixes with the oil in the graphite pencil, and it just looks terrible. So I'd rather use something else for that, like a piece of paper or a tissue. So I don't want to lose my highlights, my lighter areas. So I'm not being careful not to smudge into those areas, but also I don't want to make the darker areas too grey. So I'm constantly reinforcing drawing. A cool thing about a subject matter like this is you don't take it too seriously. So it's really quite fun to draw something like this to start out with. And also don't be afraid to leave some of the charcoal lines on the drawing. I mean, it is a drawing. Let's not just deny the fact that it is a drawing. I think too often we put so much emphasis on things looking photographic. Where drawing, I think, should look as a drawing. The first thing that people say, I want them to say when they look at my drawings is, wow, that's a good drawing. I don't want any confusion between a photograph or... And what's really cool is you can see my autobiographic mark. You can see the trace of my movement, my thinking. It's something that doesn't exist with photography. So really make that distinction in your mind. And so often, realistic drawings, photorealistic drawings, are just bad drawings. They are. They're well executed, technically great, but not as good as a photocopy machine. And the hyperrealist movement did have a point, but that is different. Okay. So just working in some darker areas. It's gone a bit grey over there. All right. Cool. Oh, I love Kermit the Frog. Such an earnest character. But yet he sips iced tea like he doesn't care. Okay. So if you look at the cup, I'm going to start with this darker area over here. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Kermit the Frog. Just break it up into different tonal planes. I know it's very intimidating drawing a glass or something because it's see-through, but you draw it the same way you do everything else. If you just stick to the principles and techniques that I've shown you over the last few weeks, you should be fine. I think another mistake people make is that they take it they're too precious about their work. You shouldn't be afraid to throw work away or think that there isn't a subject that isn't worthy of drawing, even a boring still life or Kermit the Frog. It's whatever you feel is important to you. But it can be something that's not very serious. I mean, if you want to draw from comic books, draw from comic books. If you want to draw Kermit the Frog, draw Kermit the Frog. There are no rules. I love the instant kind of mark making or instant results you get from drawing. It's different from painting or almost any other medium. It really is a good way to think. It's a good way to try out ideas as well. So for example, if I wanted to do a painting of Kermit the Frog, I already have worked out a lot of the kinks and challenges that would be very hard to overcome if I was painting. So I'm just going to come at it with a piece of eraser. I've got an eraser here today that I've broken successfully. If you watched the previous episode, episode before that, I had this unstoppable eraser. So you see some of that highlight comes into the glass. I'm actually going to create one here because I just feel like they will look cool. All right, and just around over here. On the top. I'm going to keep this mistake structured line. I quite like it. I actually really like the drawing in this state. 1 second. So, I'm very happy with how this drawing turned out. By normal standards, you say it's not finished, but I really love the marks, the gestures, just even the outline. I'm going to stop. So that's another thing. In terms of how to know when something's finished, it's completely up to the artist. If you feel like something is finished, it's done. And I say that this is finished, and you might not think that, but that's none of your business. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week. Remember to like and share and subscribe. Cheers.